Hello, and welcome to Live Healthy, Live Well, West Virginia. I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Costello, a pediatric hospitalist and assistant professor of pediatrics at the WVU School of Medicine. My guest today is Dr. Kara Pachowski. Dr. Pachowski is a clinical pharmacist who is also a medical student at the Marshall University School of Medicine. She is joining us again today to discuss Tobacco Cessation 2.0. So welcome back to the show, Dr. Pachowski. We had you on our last episode and you covered such great information about tobacco cessation. This is such an important topic in Appalachia and in our state of West Virginia. So you graciously agreed to come back so that we can continue the conversation. So I encourage our viewers to go back and watch the first episode, and we'll share information on how you're able to view that show and all of our shows that we do here on the Library Television Network. But I want you to remind our viewers of the work that you do. You're a clinical pharmacist, also a medical student, but you really have a particular passion for tobacco cessation. So remind our viewers about the work that you've done and continue to do when it comes to tobacco cessation.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dr. Costello. A little bit of background about me. I am a certified tobacco treatment specialist, and I was a pharmacist for years before I went back to medical school, which is what I'm doing now at Marshall. But before I went back to school, I taught a tobacco cessation group class for many years, did a number of one-on-one counseling sessions for tobacco cessation, and had the opportunity to create a online website called tobaccofreeme.org, where people can go for free to access resources to help them quit. So tobacco cessation is a huge passion of mine.
And it's so important, and certainly encourage people to check out the website and view our last episode, because we covered a lot about the impact tobacco and the substances with tobacco, how they impact our body and why it's really important to quit. So let's kind of dive back in talking about that. And I think it's important to remember and remind our viewers of what's the first thing that someone should do, or what's the first step to quitting?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question, and sometimes the hardest hurdle to get over. But I think as long as you even have it in the back of your mind that you're ready to quit, now's the time to be thinking about it. And step one, that's probably the most important, is to set a quit date. So there's actually some data to show that if you set a formal quit date, usually a couple days, even weeks in advance, so you have time to plan for it, that's more successful than trying to taper down slowly or decrease the amount of tobacco that you use every day. It doesn't usually work that well when you try to go that way. It's best to pick a date, and that's the end. So I suggest, even if you kind of are thinking about it in the back of your mind right now, or you know someone who wants to quit tobacco, or you want to encourage them to quit tobacco, encourage them to pick a quit date. Start to tell people that you know, so that everybody in your support system gets on board and ready for the quit date. But also pick it a little bit in advance so that you have time to do the things that you need to do in order to successfully quit, which we'll talk about a number of those things on this session. But just to start thinking about, I want to get rid of all my tobacco products by then. I want to make sure I have medications on hand if I'm going to use those. I want to have all the tools that I need to drop the habit of quitting. And so if you give yourself some time to think about it, to tell people, to prepare, it becomes more successful.
Yeah, picking that quit date, because we talked a little bit before, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm gonna just do this cold turkey, and in some cases that will work. However, there are methods that have been studied that can increase your chances of success. And so kind of jump into those. What steps could someone take to be more successful in staying off tobacco for good?
Sure. I like to talk about two different sides of the coin to successfully quitting. So the first side is when you use tobacco, there's nicotine in it, it's super addictive, and that's not your fault. It's not a matter of self-control and you can't find the motivation to quit. Nicotine hijacks your brain. It has a hold on you, and what the most successful thing you can do to try to break away from the addiction side is to use medications to slowly taper down the amount of nicotine to make you more successful. So that's one side, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute about medications. But the other side of the coin is also when people use tobacco for a number of years, there is a major habit side to it. So the addiction side and the habit side. Things just become automatic behaviors. Like you wake up in the morning and not necessarily do you even feel like you need a cigarette. It's not like you have withdrawal or anything, but it's just automatic behavior. Every time I get up in the morning, I do the same thing. I shower, brush my teeth, and have a cigarette. Maybe you have a cigarette with coffee. So just whatever the routine might be, it's important to think about that side too, because you want to break away from that routine. You want to start switching things up. Instead of having coffee in the morning, try having tea, if that could be something, just something slightly different that shakes up the habit side of using tobacco. Another big one is people frequently will smoke or use tobacco first thing when they get in the car. So things that you can do is clean your car, make it nice and fresh so that maybe it doesn't seem like an automatic behavior to want to start smoking as soon as you get in the car. This is going to sound a little bit crazy, but something that you could do to break away from the habit in the car is even listen to a different type of music. If you are a huge country fan, you put the country music station on every time you get into the car. It's just automatic behavior to maybe light up a cigarette at the same time. So perhaps try the rock station or something different just to make it slightly different to break away from that habit. And then we can talk about the addiction side more when we talk about medications.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that you mentioned last episode, so we're having you back here to talk about more tobacco cessation resources because it's so important, and encourage our viewers to go back and watch the first time we had Dr. Pachowski on. But what about those people around the person? Because I think the support system, and that might even help with the habit, like you smoke with friends or things like that. But, if your friends or family use tobacco, does that make it harder for a person to quit? Or can, it sounds like they can also serve a support role.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think people worry about that a lot, and it definitely is something to slightly worry about because when you see people smoking or using tobacco, again, it's kind of just like what you've always done. It might make you have a craving more in the forefront because you're seeing it right in front of you. But just like you mentioned, I think that a good way to get around trying to quit smoking when people around you smoke is to let them know that you're serious about quitting, that you are asking for their support, and maybe even especially at the beginning when you're first quit, even if you have to avoid those situations slightly, like a very common one is smoke breaks at work, maybe try to take your break at a different location so that you're not around people who smoke. Now, if you live with someone who smokes, you're probably not going to be able to avoid them at all times. So I think the most important part in that piece is the communication and getting support. Hey, I am really serious about this. Help me be successful and encourage me not to be smoking with you.
No, those are great tips. So let's now shift and talk about the medicines, because I think that's important. There's a lot of medications out there that you can get, that some are over the counter, some require a prescription from a healthcare provider. So talk to us about the different options that are available that could help increase someone's success of getting off of tobacco.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just do a quick overview. As a pharmacist background, medications I know a lot about. They are certainly not for everybody, so I'm not trying to say that every single person needs to use medications, but there are really good statistics to show that if you use medications to help you quit tobacco, you're over 3 times more successful. So that is, I think, a really good building block of trying to stay quit. And just like you mentioned, there are different options. There are ones that you can get over the counter. Those are most of our nicotine replacement therapy products, which I'll talk all about. And then there are a couple of medications that require a prescription. Those are very effective as well, but they would require you to talk to your primary care physician or someone you see who might be able to prescribe those medications for you. I'll talk about those quickly first because I'll spend the most time on the nicotine replacement. The ones that require a prescription, they're pills, they're medications. One is called bupropion and one is called varenicline or Chantix, you might have heard it called. And both of those are just pills that you take every day. The first one, bupropion, works as an antidepressant that helps you curb cravings and have a less desire to use tobacco, less desire to smoke, usually is where it's been most studied. And then the varenicline or Chantix is a medication that kind of blocks the way nicotine works in our brain. So it's a direct effect. It's kind of a novel mechanism, how it works. Both are very effective. There are certain things that might not be the best idea to use in certain populations, so I just encourage people to talk to their primary care provider about those. But what might be most interesting to viewers that they can go out and get right now if they're ready to quit and set a quit date is nicotine replacement products. I highly recommend those. Pretty much if used effectively, they're equally effective as the medications anyway, so it might be a really good option for folks. The first one that I like to recommend is the nicotine patch. It's a patch you just wear on your arm, really anywhere above the waist, and it slowly releases nicotine in your system throughout the day. So you wear it all day, and it kind of gives a baseline low amount of nicotine throughout the day that helps you not want a craving for nicotine. So when you take the cigarettes or the tobacco away, you're giving yourself a safe way to slowly come off of the nicotine. And a really good thing to use with the patch, because the patch lasts all day, is a as-needed gum or lozenge. And lozenge is just a fancy word for a cough drop. So these products have nicotine in them as well. They're used as needed, so they are very short acting. You just kind of pop them in your mouth and they only give you a little bit of nicotine in that moment. But they're really successful in helping people get over a craving that's really strong right now. So the best way, and what data shows, is to use combination products. So to use a long-acting nicotine patch plus either the gum or the lozenge to use as needed when a craving comes very strongly.
And I think that's so important because as we talked last time, and you mentioned again, nicotine is one of the most addictive substances on the planet. And I think it really takes over and takes control. And so even if you know or you're really motivated to quit, it's that drawing back. And so getting that extra help to curb those cravings, I think, can really help give a person better success for getting off. And you quoted that data that shows that. And so let's kind of talk now a little bit, because I know you also have talked about like the sessions you hold. And I think that that's important because it's very hard to, when you've used sometimes, and we talked about this last time, many of the companies, they are targeted towards children and teens. And so you may have started smoking or using tobacco very early in your life. And so it might be something like you can't even remember not using tobacco. And so talk to us about what could people do if they maybe need more help quitting tobacco or staying quit from tobacco?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably there's a couple resources, first of all. I think a really good one, especially in the state of West Virginia, is the Quit line. If you call 1-800-QUIT-NOW, that is a kind of like a hotline that you can call. You can set up one-on-one counseling. People are there on the other line just for support if needed. And they can help you get nicotine replacement products either covered through your insurance or for free from the Quit line. So those medications, where they're not as expensive as using tobacco, they still come with a price. So if that's something that folks are worried about, they can call the Quit line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, and that's a really great resource. Another really good resource is the website that I talked about at the beginning. It's called tobaccofreeme.org. And that website, You'll see me on there some. So we actually recorded different sessions of 6 in total. It's a whole curriculum of how to help people quit tobacco. So I talk about, again, more about breaking away from triggers on the habit side. I talk about much more in depth about medications and what might be best for you, and even side effects and things to watch for to be able to use them safely. Overall, very well tolerated and safe. But all that information is on there. There's also really great diet tips. So a dietitian helped me build this website, and she does an excellent job of going through how to keep the weight off when people do quit. Just FYI, try not to worry about gaining weight too much, because on average, people gain less than 5 pounds when they quit smoking. And, that could be a little bit of a problem. And so we have resources for that, of how to keep the weight off when you quit. That's on there. And there's even active learning things that people can do along with the modules in the curriculum to help them quit. So for instance, there's a worksheet that you fill out of what you will do to break away from your triggers. So things like, I'll chew gum, when I am bored, or I'll start coloring in a coloring book, whatever it might be. You can kind of make an action plan for the quit date. So all those things are on that website, tobaccofreeme.org. Highly recommend visiting it and just checking it out. Everything's free.
No, I think that's great. And there's also like group sessions that might be available like in your community, like at some different hospitals, or group sessions, so that you maybe need that additional peer support to be able to really, accomplish this goal that you set, and to know that there are resources out there, there are people out there that can help you be able to do that. So, you've obviously worked in this space, and you've done so much work that is really impressive and important. I think you even have success stories that you could share. You probably have many of them, but I think you may even have a letter that you could share with our viewers, because I think there might be individuals out there thinking, okay, I've had it in the back of my mind. Now I have some more resources. Should I do it, or is it even possible? Maybe people have known individuals who have tried to quit, and then something happens in their life that they kind of revert back to it. So share with us about some of those success stories, and maybe even, if you would, I think you have a letter that you could share with us.
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that makes working with people to try to quit tobacco so rewarding is the success stories. I have people who still frequently give me a phone call, text, or email on their quit date that happened years ago, saying, hey, I'm still quit. I don't even think about cigarettes anymore, which is just really awesome and makes my job super rewarding. And one of the things that we did in class, in my group class, was one of the active learning things that's also on the website that you can check out, is to write a Dear John letter to your cigarettes. And what a Dear John letter is if you don't know, you write a letter to someone to break up with them without having to face that person. So it sounds kind of ridiculous, but what we do in class is have folks write a Dear John letter to break up with their cigarettes. And one of my favorite things from class was honestly, all the letters are great. The letters are also effective in helping you stay quit, because it kind of makes you examine your relationship with cigarettes. It makes you think about why quitting is important. It makes you think about people in your life, why it's important to quit. And so they're always really great letters. But I wanted to share one with permission from a patient that I thought was just outstanding, and a really good reflection of just how powerful cigarettes can be over people's lives, but also why it's so important to quit. So I'll go ahead and share this now. And if this tells you anything about people's relationship with cigarettes, I think the first, how it's even addressed, is really interesting. So this person starts the letter to break up with her cigarettes as, "My darling." So she says, "My darling, how can I express what you've meant to me these many years? The bond we've shared has been stronger than any other in my life. You were always there for me when I was alone. When I was scared, you gave me strength. When I was happy, you shared my joys. When I was mad, you fueled my fire with your own. When I turned my back on you, you waited patiently, knowing I would return. You welcomed me back into your arms, and you were practically my love. We knew each other so well. Just the smell of you got my heart pounding. The feel of you in my hand made my blood boil, even now. How can I tell you that I have to go? I'll just do it. This is goodbye. I love you, and I always will, but this is killing me. It's not healthy, and I see it now. I have changed, grown, but you have stayed the same. You're giving me wrinkles on my face. You take my money. You make my breath smell bad and my teeth yellow. I won't be a victim anymore. I can't take you anywhere in public without you embarrassing me. I can't count the number of times I told my children to wait so I could see you. You are not more important than my children. I am so angry at myself for putting you first. You had a hold on me even when I was sick. I pray it's not too late for me to give my body a fresh start. This pain will not kill me, and that which does not kill me will make me stronger. Don't wait for me this time. I know you will find others to take my place. I may be tempted from time to time, but this time you can bet I won't be back. Goodbye.
Wow, that's so powerful, and obviously a very talented writer, but I think just like you said, it just illustrates the kind of hold and that relationship that a person has. And for many different, if they have stress in their life or they might, go to that. And I think that there are, healthier options to do that, but how just, wow, such a powerful story. Thank you for sharing. And thank you to the person who, gave you permission to share that with others, because I think it does, highlight the hold that tobacco use can have on an individual and others, because we talked about how kids might, themselves be drawn towards tobacco, but if they're around other people who smoke, like you talked about, sometimes people get in the car and smoke. Well, if there's a child in the car, they are exposed to that smoke. They smell that smoke. As a pediatrician, I frequently have this discussion with families, and people don't even realize, like, there's third degree smoke where it's like you're smoking outside because you're like, oh, I don't smoke around them, so they don't get the secondhand smoke, but just on their clothes. Like if you go to hold a baby,
furniture.
The furniture, there's that exposure. So it really does impact so many people. But wow, such a powerful letter, and I thank you for sharing it, and thank the person for allowing you to share. So I think that's a success story. What message would you share to people who are struggling? Like, I think sometimes we're always like, oh, we talk about the success stories, but there's people, what's your advice to them for people who might be struggling a little bit more to actually quit?
Yep. So I know how difficult it is to quit tobacco, and I think the most important thing that you can do to be successful, and if you're thinking that the mountain is too high to climb, do your best to keep a positive attitude. Because when you add all these things together, using medications, getting support, being serious about it this time and setting a quit date, when you start to add those things together, the success goes way up. And so even if you've tried a number of things in the past, whether it be cold turkey, whether you've tried medications in the past and they didn't seem to work, try your best to have a positive attitude, because I know firsthand by running this class, it can be done. It can be done. Honestly, it's probably awesome if you've listened to me talk for this long and you are interested in quitting. You're making the first right step, even just having it in the back of your mind. That's awesome. Congrats on that. Keep it moving forward with a positive attitude. One thing that I always say in class is think about past attempts at quitting as practice, not as failures. So learn from the things that worked well for you in the past to help you quit, even if you stayed quit for a couple hours. What worked well during that time? what didn't work well during that time. If you were quit for a couple hours, a couple days, a couple months or years, what made you turn back to cigarettes? Start to think about all those things and how to plan this time to deal with those things as they come up. So think about past attempts as practice rather than failures, which goes hand in hand with having a positive attitude about quitting tobacco.
No, I love that. I think if at first you don't succeed, try again.
Exactly.
As cliche as it may sound, and you can learn a lot from those past attempts, and then, like you said, make adjustments to potentially change for the future. So I know throughout these 2 episodes, so again, to our viewers, this is the second time we've had Dr. Pachowski to talk about tobacco cessation, and we've covered a wide range of topics as well as resources. You gave resources for online, but also in local communities, talking to your healthcare provider. The local hospital could also perhaps provide resources, because I think, like what you said last time, I mean, quitting, it's one of the most important things you can do for your health. Even just since the last time we've been together to have these segments, I've had a patient who's been admitted to the hospital from a complication from vaping. And so, we continue to see the health impacts that it has on people's lives, and there are so many benefits to quitting. So we've covered a wide range of topics. Any kind of closing thoughts you'd like to share with our Live Healthy, Live Well West Virginia audience, particularly when it comes to tobacco cessation?
Sure. I just want to say thanks for listening. I think that whether you are someone who uses tobacco, or if it's close to you, if someone in your family uses tobacco, I think positive encouragement of helping people quit is really important. Utilize those resources that we've talked about all through this segment. The West Virginia Quit Line is really helpful. Visiting tobaccofreeme.org, where you can go through the curriculum to learn even more, much more detailed information. And there's a lot. It's really a lot more complicated than just saying, I want to quit, tomorrow or right now. Planning for it, setting a quit date in the future are all things that will just increase people's success in quitting tobacco. So visit those things, keep a positive attitude, and if you have any questions, you can get a hold of me through the website, and I'd be happy to talk more about tobacco cessation.
No, and this has been so helpful, and as the person in the letter that you wrote, hopefully more people can say goodbye to their darling, or whatever their relationship with that tobacco product is, because it really is so important in helping individuals lead healthy lives. So I want to thank you so much, Dr. Pachowski, for coming back. I think these sessions have been great in sharing information with our viewers and the public on the importance of tobacco cessation. So thank you again for joining us, and for all that you have done and continue to do to help people lead healthy lives. And thank you all for joining in to Live Healthy, Live Well West Virginia on the Library Television Network.